Hello out there, and welcome into the Sanders Sports Show on this unofficial holiday, the day after the Super Bowl. What a game last night. Definitely be talking about that, the Super Bowl last night. This is the Sanders Sports Show, live here on Spreaker.com. I am your host, David Sanders. You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Sanders Sports Show. Right here on Spreaker.com, leave me a message. Also on Twitter at SandersD84. Also, we are on iTunes. Just search for Sanders Sports Show. Got a lot to talk about today. Going to continue our 30 teams in 30 days preview with the AL Central, starting off with the White Sox today. We're going to be talking about the Indians tomorrow, Tigers on Wednesday, Royals on Thursday, and Twins on Friday. Just a little heads up on the schedule for that. Going to talk a little bit about the Lakers. Did they actually win yesterday? We'll find out. Also, a possible big trade in the NBA with Kevin Garnett. We'll let you know who's interested in him. Also, there's a little bit of controversy going on in soccer right now that could have huge, and I mean huge, implications overseas with FIFA. We'll let you know what's going on there. But we'll start out with, of course, what everybody's talking about. Don't worry, by the way, my lights will stay on. My power's still on. It's not going to go anywhere, so don't worry about having to turn off this broadcast three quarters of the way through. Don't worry about that. Beyonce's not going to be here. Not going to be draining all the power out of the studio here, so don't worry about that. But last night there was a pretty good football game that happened during that concert. Ravens and the 49ers. The Harbaugh battle, whatever you want to call it. If you weren't one of the, I think it was 48.1 rating that they got, just remarkable numbers. I mean, that's a record for, I think, anything. That's just insanity. I think it was 77% of all households in America were tuned in to this game. Hell, even the part where the blackout happened got a 46.5. That tells you how much people in this country love football. Baseball got a quarter of that rating for the World Series. NBA, NHL finals dream about ratings like that. They're not even close to those. Daytona 500 couldn't touch that. I mean, this sport is America, and that showed it last night. 48.1. Was it the Harbaugh battle, the battle of the brothers? Was it? There's not that many 49er or Ravens fans. I know 77% of the country is not a fan of one of those two teams. Most part, I see mostly Cowboys fans still for some reason. Gotta give them credit though; they're diehard. But just 48.1, that number is just astounding to me. That's just the preliminary report. We'll find out more later today on what the final numbers will be. I can't imagine them going down that much. But if you were one of those people that saw the game last night, saw some pretty decent commercials, not the best crop of commercials I've seen. The Budweiser Clydesdale, the baby Clydesdale did get to me, as it did many people, it sounds like. Doritos came through again with the goat. Jack in the Box, that one had me cracking up. And That's How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, that was brilliant. Leon Sandcastle had to have been the best one of the night, though. I want to pick him as my first fantasy pick. I do. I want Leon Sandcastle. In case you didn't see that commercial for some reason, Leon Sandcastle, of course, Deion Sanders, trying to take advantage of how the rookie boom that's happening in the NBA nowadays. Trying to come back wearing just the worst wig you can think of, and obviously a fake mustache. I mean, it was so obvious, Ron Jeremy probably would sue for that. Because that pretty much looked like his mustache, but Deion Sanders went into the scouting combine and said, when they asked him his name, he's like, Leon Sand Castle. Became the biggest story out there. Draft day, Kansas City Chiefs took him number 1. Roger Goodell. Do I know you from somewhere? No, you don't. Brilliant commercial. It was between that and the Tide commercial with the Joe Montana stain. Those were the two best, I think, last night. If I'm missing any of them, I'm sorry, but I'm not even going to mention GoDaddy except for their name. If you saw the commercial, you know what I'm talking about. GoDaddy's usually pretty good. Last night, no. Just, that should never happen. Move on. Like I said, in between all this entertainment, the Beyonce concert, the Destiny's Child reunion, mini reunion, I mean, they were out there for, 1.5 songs. Between all that, there was a football game. And if you're a wrestling fan, supposedly The Undertaker or The Shield came out during the blackout last night. 38-minute blackout, I think it was, 38 minutes. And it was a very critical time of the game, too, that this happened. This was right after Torrey Smith had his run back for the touchdown, 108-yard run back for a touchdown, Super Bowl record. And then the following drive, the lights go out. So a lot of people are blaming Beyonce, and I'm not joking on this one. People are blaming her halftime show for overloading the circuits, pretty much, and that caused the blackout of half the stadium. Because all the lights were off for a second, then a couple boards of the lights started coming back on here and there. I could feasibly see that. Apparently, there's reports that Beyonce's her practices, they blew the power out twice during that, so I could see that if that was the case. But of course, there's going to be conspiracy theories. I actually mentioned it, that it seemed a little fishy at the time last night because the Ravens had all this momentum. They just scored again on the opening kickoff of the second half. Had all this momentum just taken away from them. And then, of course, the Niners scored on their next 2 drives after that while the Ravens sputtered. If anything, it at least made it a game. It at least made it a good game to watch because the Ravens were blowing them out. They were outplaying them everywhere. 49ers didn't have enough, though. Of course, the Ravens won 34-31. Very weird ending. Capped off by a no call, which it was a right no call, I think, in the end zone on Michael Crabtree. If you're in the last minute of the game, unless it's blatant, like you shove him 30 yards away, you're not going to get a call. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a little pushing and shoving in the end zone with a minute to go, especially in the Super Bowl. You've got to let him play. I think it was a correct no call. Sorry, 49ers fans, it was. Because if the tides were reversed, if the roles were reversed there, you would have said the same thing. Good no call. Yeah, I picked the Ravens to win. But if it would have been as blatant as Week 6 in Seattle, yeah, I would have had a problem with it. With a horrible call. Not a bad no call there. MVP, of course, Mr. 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in this playoffs. Mr. Excitement. Finally, the elite one, Joe Flacco. And I'll get to him more in a minute because I have a whole segment about him because I'm tired. I am tired of the bad-mouthing of Joe Flacco. Jim Harbaugh after the game. I mean, there was a prop bet in Vegas about the Harbaugh brothers handshake / hug in the post game. I'm sure a lot of people probably took the over. I would have if I would have bet that. I would have taken the over. The over under, I think the last time I saw it was 7.5 seconds. It lasted maybe 3. I would have expected about 10 seconds, like a hug, handshake, good job. Hey, what about that play? Yeah. It's like they were just 2 coaches going out there shaking hands. It's like they weren't even brothers. Yeah, I could see Jim being pissed off about the no call. Oh, just they're seeing Jim Harbaugh holding his arm, trying to call for a hold. That was comedic to me. That's what I love about Jim Harbaugh. He is a fun coach to watch. I will give him that for sure. He's just so fun to watch. Just his mannerisms. I mean, he's like Pete Carroll of Seattle. Just their facial expressions, everything about them is just fun to watch. And they're emotional. They're intense. And that is not a bad thing. You don't see that a lot anymore in coaches. And both these guys came from the Pac-12. Carroll from USC, Harbaugh from Stanford. We have Chip Kelly going from Oregon to Philadelphia in the NFL now. I think we'll see the same thing out of him. But we don't see that emotion anymore. We saw that a lot last night out of Jim. And over the last 2 years, really, in San Francisco. Of course, this was Ray Lewis's last game, no matter what. Went out as a champion, deservingly so. But now the question is turned to what next for the Ravens. Once again, I'll get to Joe Flacco more here in a minute, but that's really the centerpiece right now is Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is on his last year of his contract this year. There have been no negotiations since last summer. They're already over the cap. They're already going to have to pay some luxury tax for what they have now. What do you do now? There's already talked about Anquan Bolden being released. That'll free up about $5.5 million. Probably going to be losing Ed Reed. Talks about him going to New England. Probably going to be losing Nagata. I know a few people up here in Washington that would love to see Nagata in Seattle. Right, Mark? They need to release a few players, yes, but look who else they have on there. I mean, look at Torrey Smith, Jacoby Jones. They have offensive weapons right there. And, of course, Ray Rice and Pierce. They still got offensive weapons. If they release Anquan Bolden, so what? On defense, they still got Terrell Suggs. He's pretty much the second coming of Ray Lewis. As far as intensity goes, as far as leadership goes. Watching Suggs since ASU days, I knew he would be a big star. The Ravens, a lot of people say that they're going to fall off next year. I don't think so. I think they'll be just as strong as ever, if not in this Super Bowl next year, defending their title. Minus a few of the people they have now, yes. But they have just as good people who are making less money to fill those shoes. They need to lock up Flacco. Joe Flacco is that team right now. And there's a lot of people talking about him today, both good and bad. Actually, I got into a little bit of an argument on Facebook earlier about this. About how people are still saying that he's not in the elite class. Look at what this man has done since 2008. His rookie year was 2008. I pulled up some stats here. With last night's win, Joe Flacco won his 9th playoff game since 2008. Since 2008, the only quarterbacks who have come close to that are Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, both with 5. Joe Flacco has taken the Ravens to the playoffs every year since he's been in the league. No one else can say they've done that. Not Tom Brady, not Peyton Manning, not Aaron Rodgers, not Roethlisberger. Hell, not even Montana, Young, Marino, Elway, Kelly, any of them can say that. Yeah, it took him 5 years to win his first Super Bowl. How long did it take Peyton to win his only Super Bowl? That's another thing. Flacco has as many Super Bowl titles as Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. All 3 of them are considered elite quarterbacks. Why not Joe Flacco? Joe Flacco has more playoff wins than, check out some of these names. Peyton Manning. Manning only has 2 playoff wins. That was the year that he won the Super Bowl. Since 2008. This is not pre-2008. This is since 2008 when Flacco came into the league. Peyton Manning has two playoff wins. Tom Brady has 3. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, 5. Roethlisberger, 5. Drew Brees, 3. Eli Manning, 4. And all of Eli Manning's came the year that he won the Super Bowl. Last year against the Patriots. Ravens are 54-26 since Joe Flacco came into the league. 9-4 in the playoffs. Yeah, there's quarterbacks out there that have better winning percentage than Flacco, Tom Brady being one of them. But he's in the top 5 since 2008, top 5 for records. This man has done pretty much the impossible here. He came right into this league out of Delaware. Delaware, a Division II school. He came in here, been instantly successful, taking teams to the playoffs, taking them to the AFC Championship 3 times before this year. What more do you want from this guy to call him elite? I know it's a running joke on the Facebook quarterback convos that NFL Pro Mock, I think they're called, comes out. It's funny in there. But seriously, Joe Flacco, I've been a fan of this kid since I saw him first throw in Baltimore. I didn't get a chance to see his Delaware stuff because it's Delaware. Who watches Delaware? Except for Delaware. This kid is something special. Yeah, he might not be the most exciting person in the world. His own father calls him dull. How can you argue with that? But still, dull, I said it last week, dull equals championships. Look at the San Antonio Spurs. It's not always the flashy. It's not always the most exciting. It's results. Joe Flacco provides results, and he has shown it. This year, in the playoffs, 11 touchdowns, 0 picks. There's only one other person that's done that. And actually, Flacco tied him yesterday, and that's another Joe Montana. The only other person to complete that task, 11 touchdowns, 0 picks. How is he not elite? And that's the discussion for today. I want to hear from you guys out there. Right here on the Spreaker page, on Facebook, facebook.com/Sanders Sports Show. On Twitter, of course, @SandersD84, or on iTunes. Just search Sanders Sports Show. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear a valid argument. Given all this evidence, how is Joe Flacco not considered elite in your eyes? Or do you agree? Is he elite? Did it take this Super Bowl win to make him elite? I want to hear from you guys. It's gonna be a long time discussion. I can already tell because people have been arguing about this probably for the last couple of months now. I think Flacco not only proved himself before last night, I think last night was just an exclamation point on that. And really, nobody else can say they did what he did. Nobody. Not even Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. Not Joe Namath. Not Johnny Unitas, not Bart Starr. None of them. Roger Staubach. Nobody can do what Flacco's done. Coming up next, we're going to transition over to basketball. Who's looking to get Garnett, and what happened with the Lakers in Detroit last night. We'll let you know after the break here. This is the Sanders Sports Show right here on Spreaker.com. Welcome back into the Sanders Sports Show. I am Dave Sanders. However you're listening to the show today, thank you for making the show a part of your day. Who got tired of hearing that over the last 3 or 4 days on ESPN? That seems to be, all morning on Sunday, that was all the crowd was humming was the beat to Seven Nation Army. Had to do it one more time. I love the song, I'm sorry. Turning over to the NBA now. Apparently there was 3 basketball games yesterday. Of course, not many people cared because it was the Super Bowl Sunday. Everybody was fixated on the pregame shows, on the pre-pregame shows, on the 5 in the morning, I'm going to watch something about the Super Bowl shows. But there was a couple games yesterday. Miami actually beat Toronto in Toronto 185. That earned Coach Eric Spoelstra the right to coach the Eastern Conference in the All-Star game coming up here in a few weeks. Another game, the Clippers fall to the Celtics 106-104. I'll come back to that game here in a moment. But right now we're going to talk about the Lakers. They played yesterday as well, and the Palace in Detroit. Okay, now, before I give you the score here, I'm going to let you know, if you didn't see this game, because I didn't either, I just saw the highlights. There was one point in this game, the Lakers were up by 18. In the third quarter, they were up by 18 points. Mind you that. Lakers won 98-97. There's something going on here with the Lakers. It's something that really I'm surprised it's taken me this long to notice. But it's especially in road games. I mean, Phoenix, it was the first time I really noticed it, because they also did it at home against New Orleans a couple days before. Did it here in Detroit. They did it actually in Minnesota almost. They can have a 18, 20-point lead in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. It's like they forget how to play basketball in the fourth quarter. I don't know what happens to them, but they just cannot defend anymore. They can't make baskets, and they can't defend. I don't get this. That should not have been that close of a game if they were dominating the first three quarters. I don't know if they're taking the Tony Romo approach to playing. Only play 3 quarters a game. I don't know what it is. Can't blame Dwight on this one, really. He wasn't out on the floor. He's still out with his shoulder injury. He's still day-to-day. Doesn't sound like he's going to play tomorrow against Brooklyn. But it sounds like he'll be a game-time decision. But still, they've won 2 in a row now without Dwight. Do they really need him? Reports came out today that there's no chance they're going to trade Dwight. They're just going to ride him out through the season. I've already let my feelings known about how I think that will work out. Because I think they're just going to lose him and get nothing for him. I don't think he'll stay in L.A. He's a free agent after this year. He's going to bolt. Especially if he's not the center of attention, which he's not here. But yeah, Lakers beat the Pistons 98-97 after being up 18 at one point. They were up, I think, 23 or 24 against Minnesota a few nights ago. Almost lost that one. I mean, Minnesota had a hell of a charge in the fourth quarter. Really, if it wasn't for Kobe, with 1:09 remaining, they might have lost that game. The Lakers missed 4 free throws in the final 16 seconds. And they still won. Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. They missed 4 free throws. They can't close out games anymore. It's like Kobe plays the facilitator for 3 quarters and then goes back into his old ways in the fourth quarter when they start panicking. It's not the way to play. They need to change that here and change that fast. Lakers have 4 more games left on the Grammy Tour. They're 2-1 so far. They beat Minnesota and Detroit last night. They lost to Phoenix the first game. Their last 4 games on this leg: Brooklyn, Boston, Charlotte, Miami. The way Boston's playing lately, they're 4-0 since Rondo went out. I don't think they're beating Boston. They're not beating Miami. I'm sorry, they're not. Not in Miami. I'll give them Charlotte. If they can't beat Charlotte, they're done. Which leaves Brooklyn, which is tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. This is the only one I have an assurance about. Because this one, they can either go 3-4 or 4-3, and all banks on tomorrow night. They need to have a winning record coming out. They need to play their hearts out. I just don't see it, though. So really, the only other game they'll win on this trip, I think, will be Charlotte. Then they're back home next week, next Tuesday against Phoenix, where they can start hammering out a few wins, trying to make up for some of these losses. I mentioned Boston was 4-0 without Rondo since his injury went out. Reports are before the the game on Sunday, the Clippers and the Celtics were talking about a potential trade involving Kevin Garnett. Clippers are interested in him. The bad thing about Garnett is not really his age, but his contract. He has 2 years, $23.5 million left on his contract. That's a lot to take on in the NBA. The move would involve Eric Bledsoe and Caron Butler going to Boston. Good young guys there. Really, the Clippers are in trouble. They need something going on. They have injuries to Jamal Crawford, Chris Paul, and Chancey Billups. Jamal Crawford, of course, I think he's a lock for Sixth Man of the Year. I can see this trade going through. I just don't know where you put him. I mean, you obviously have to play Garnett at center and keep Blake at the 2. Because you can't have Blake sit down just for Garnett. I mean, yeah, Blake isn't the greatest shooter. Decent defender, but he can get you points up close. The one thing that would hamper this trade, Garnett does have a no-trade clause, so we would have to waive that. And we have about 17 days left before the trade deadline. It's on the 21st. So we have potential trade coming out of Boston, and we have a definite no trade coming out of LA, for sure. There'll be some interesting times here in the next couple weeks in the NBA. We'll definitely keep you up to date on any moves that happen. But for tonight, we got 8 games on the slate. Orlando and Philly. Clippers actually go to Washington to play the Wizards. Got the Bulls at Indiana taking on the Pacers. That should be a great game, actually. Derrick Rose almost back. He had full contact in practice over the weekend. Still eyeing the games after the All-Star break as his return. He's well on schedule for that. If you think the Bulls are dangerous now, wait till D-Rose comes back. Yeah, the Pistons traveling to New York to play the Knicks. Bobcats at the Heat. Mavericks over take on the Thunder. Trailblazers take on the Timberwolves. And over on NBA TV tonight at 9 Eastern, we got the Kings traveling to Utah to take on the Jazz. Gonna take a break here in a moment, but first a little bit of breaking news earlier today that's going to affect any soccer fans, especially EuroLeague soccer fans. A humongous hit to the leagues over there. This actually includes some Euro Cup and also has ties to World Cup teams as well. In recent years, over 380 matches have been linked to being fixed. European Union's police agency said in an 18-month review found 380 suspicious matches in Europe and another 300 questionable games outside the continent, mainly in Africa, Asia, South and Central America. They had also found evidence that a Singapore-based crime syndicate was involved in some of the match fixing. Now, the match fixing included bribes to referees, bribes to players to be on the take. Me and my friend Justin were talking about this actually just the other day. There has to be some sort of fixation in some games, and this was an argument in one of my groups. I don't see how some things can't be fixed. I know it shouldn't be, but there's just some things that work out too perfectly. But for almost 700 games to be found to have been fixed is just absurd. Europol refused to name any suspected matches, players, officials, or match fixers, saying that it would compromise ongoing national investigations. I mean, these people were taking upwards of €100,000, which is $136,000 here, per match. This is talking in the billions, possibly, on money spent to bribe these officials, bribe these players. Story was just broke today, so I'm sure there's a lot coming out of this. UEFA, FIFA, pretty much all the world's leagues are going to be looking into this. To say that this is going to hurt soccer is beyond an understatement. This is like saying the bounty scandal and that the Saints face was just a slap in the wrist. We'll definitely keep you up to date on any developments out of this. We have the World Cup actually happening here next year. I believe it's down in Brazil again. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen with some of these qualifying matches. Hey, if we're clean in this one, the U.S., we might actually win a World Cup. That'd be great. It wouldn't be the most ideal way to win one, but hey, we could say we won the World Cup in soccer. This might be the only chance we get. I joke. I mean, U.S. soccer has come a long way from where it was. I mean, we're in the top 20 usually in the rankings. And to say that is an accomplishment of itself. But yeah, like I said, we will keep you posted on any new developments in that scandal. Yeah, take another quick break coming up. Guess what song you get to hear? Yeah, it's time for the 30 teams to 30 days preview. We start previewing the AL Central with the Chicago White Sox on the other side of this break. This is the Sanders Sports Show right here on Spreaker.com. Welcome back into the Sanders Sports Show right here on Spreaker.com. You guys can have nightmares of that song out there. And I do apologize about that. Like I said, they play that every game up here at Safeco Field in Seattle, as I'm sure they do at many other ballparks. Just keeping the tradition alive. Really quickly, before we get into the White Sox preview, news came out today that former Cy Young winner Brandon Webb announced his retirement. Last pitched in 2009, had a couple of rotator cuff surgeries since then. Had a pretty good career, 87-62, 3.27 ERA, won the 2006 NL Cy Young with the Diamondbacks. Really good pitcher. I mean, hampered with injuries, I think he could have been a great pitcher. Cut down too short, though. I think 33 now. Horrible way to go out, having rotator cuff issues, but if you're a pitcher, definitely need that. So all the best to Brandon Webb. Hope he lands some sort of maybe announcing gig or even just a managerial job or even. That'd be great to see. But 30 teams in 30 days preview continues on. Last week we did the AL West. This is the AL Central week. Like I said earlier, in case you missed it, the schedule is as follows. White Sox today, Indians tomorrow, Tigers on Wednesday, Royals on Thursday, and Twins on Friday. I know a couple people looking forward to a couple of those reports. They're not going to be favorable, I'm sorry. I think you know who I'm talking to out there. But as far as the White Sox are concerned, didn't have a bad year last year. They weren't horrible. They were 85-77, second in the Central. Pitchers to catchers report on February 12th, and it's Tuesday. Their first spring training game is the 23rd against the Dodgers. They were very quiet in the offseason this year. Didn't really make any moves. They signed a couple people to longer deals. That was about it. Their lineup looks pretty much the same as last year. You got the Canucco Dunn 1-2 punch right there in the cleanup spots. Ramirez, of course, Alexei Ramirez, great defending shortstop, fast on the bases. Alejandro De Aza, strong bat there too. They did get Alex Rios, I believe, last year. Definitely a big help for their team. I have them going actually about the same. They might win about 3 less games than they did last year. I have them going 82 and 80. But they're, like I said, not much happened. I don't have a lot to report on this. They're going to be pretty much the same as last year. Their starting pitching looks pretty decent. Jake Peavy having a resurgence in Chicago after his started declining a little bit in San Diego. Chris Sale on the rise. John Danks. Gavin Floyd and Jose Quintana round out their starting pitching. I don't have a lot of really good or bad things to say about the White Sox. Like I said, very quiet offseason. They were probably the quietest team out there, to be honest. That's the thing with the White Sox. They don't really, they have a history of not making a lot of noise on signing big free agents. As I have them going 82 and 80. Not going to make the playoffs this year. That should probably land them, I'd say, third in the division. But we'll see what happens. I mean, they have Paul Konerko first. They have Adam Dunn as their DH. There's about 70, 80 home runs between the two right there. They're going to score runs. I mean, they were 7th in runs last year in baseball. They have all the tools. It's just a matter of getting them put together. They're in one of the more weaker divisions. Outside of the Tigers, there's not really a lot there. I'll get to more of that later on this week with a few of my teams. But I actually do have the White Sox finishing third this year. I'll let you know who finishes second when that time comes. I will tell you right now I do have the Tigers winning the Central again, though. Who will finish second, though? You'll just have to find out. Tune in this week. I know, not much of a preview. I know it's kind of like the Astros last Monday. They didn't give me much to work with. White Sox aren't giving me much to work with. They really aren't. I mean, you have to be able to make moves. I mean, they didn't make any moves. Besides the Brandon Webb story, not a lot going on in baseball either. Really quickly, turn the tables over to NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson has said he's going to actually compete in a nationwide race. First time in about 3 or 4 years he's done that. At Phoenix in March. I don't know if you heard about this. Danica Patrick and Ricky Stenhouse. They're officially a couple. They've been a couple for a while. They officially came out and announced it. That is going to be awkward on the track. Because you know, outside the jokes, because you know the jokes are going to come. Oh, well, Ricky's riding her rear end. Oh, Ricky just tapped her on the rear end. She spun out. You know there's going to be jokes like that. You know it's coming. But it's going to be weird if they wreck each other. I mean, what's that going to do to them? Oh, hey, honey, how was your day? Well, you wrecked me, Ricky. Sorry. You're sleeping on the couch. I mean, really, that's probably the worst sport. Because males and females race each other, that's probably the worst thing to do is to get involved with another driver. Because you know it's going to end bad. Daytona's coming up. They could be broken up by that weekend. If the opportunity presents itself, I mean, Ricky could get right in the back of Danica. They could be racing for the win. I know. Danica racing for the win. I know. It's a stretch. I know that. Stenhouse racing for the win in the Sprint Cup, that's a stretch too. But it's Daytona. You never know. And this is a race Trevor Bayne won. Who's Trevor Bayne? He doesn't even have a full-time ride until next year. But really, they could be racing for the win here. All of a sudden, Danica moves to the side. Ricky turns her. And she goes into the wall. You don't think they're going to have words after that? I do wish them the best. I hope it works out. But this is probably the worst sport to actually do that in. NASCAR does start. I cannot wait. 2 weeks for Speed Weeks. The shootout, the duels, and then the Daytona 500, February 24th. I will be in Arizona at that time. Speaking of that, I will be off the air for a week-ish. February 22nd through March 1st. I will be off the air. I will return March 4th with a recap and whatever happened the previous week. Also, that should be my final week of the MLB 30 teams in 30 days preview with the NL East, actually. And just want to let you know that, so don't expect me to be on. I am looking at still doing a live report from Safeco Field on April 1st when the A's come into town to open the season. Stay tuned for more information on that. Tomorrow's show, we're going to once again talk about the Indians on the previews. Going to preview the Lakers-Nets game, find out if the Lakers do have a chance tomorrow night. Also talk more about the NBA, throw in some NHL in there and more, so don't miss the show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific time as usual. Also tomorrow, it's Tuesday, so you know what time it is. It's Finalize This. Join Joe 5 o'clock somewhere and Anthony Perry over on Finalize This as they give you their take on the weekend sports. I'm sure they'll have a lot to talk about with yesterday's Super Bowl, as well as the MLB season coming soon. That's Finalize This, Fanalyze, this, over on Spreaker.com. Also on their Facebook page, go like them, go share them, Facebook.com/Finalize This. And for the bowling fans out there, I know there's a few of you, check out bowlingevolved.com, get hints and tips to make your game better. Also keep up to date with the PBA Tour, with teams owned by the likes of Terrell Owens, Chris Paul, and more. Bowling is becoming fun, bringing bowling to the masses, from the casual bowler to the hardcore pro. Bowlingevolved.com has what you need. That's bowlingevolved.com. That will about wrap it up here for today's show. Once again, the topic of the day is Joe Flacco elite. Tell me why or why not. If you don't think he is, give me a compelling argument. Don't just say, oh, he's not. Give me something. I mean, I presented the facts earlier. Not going to repeat them again. Give me your opinion out there. I'm at Facebook, facebook.com/Sanders Sports Show. Right here at Spreaker.com, you can leave me a message, or on my Twitter at SandersD84. Also, we are on iTunes. Just search for Sanders Sports Show. You can leave comments on there as well. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday. We'll see you tomorrow. As always, be good humans. Bye-bye.